All right, what's up, Dragon Brood? Today's a little bit of a weird one because I guess there was a bunch of spoiled cards in our official preview, so I'm going to not talk about those until they're made official. But we do have a handful of cards that did get previewed yesterday that we can talk about, so let's hop into it. All right, so Fear of Being Hunted is a colorless red 4/2 nightmare enchantment with haste, and it must be blocked if able. This is interesting. I think for constructed, if unless I'm playing something that's like an actual haste deck, I'm probably not looking to play this card. But it's not bad as a limited play thing. I mean, you at least force something to block it, and that's got to count for a thing. There's a lot of fear in this set, apparently. There's Fear of Falling, 3 colorless, blue, which makes sense it would be a blue card. It is also an enchantment nightmare. It's a 4/4 with flying. Whenever it attacks, target creature defending player controls gets -2 and loses flying until your next turn. Yeah, this is definitely a quality limited card, right? Not only does it give something -2 power, it does actually remove an opposing blocker. So, yeah, this is super good. Like the fact that it's a 4/4 flyer and can basically make sure something doesn't block it, you're definitely playing this in limited. For 5 mana, again, I think in constructed we just get so many quality things right now that we're probably not playing this. But I don't know what the enchantment deck looks like, so I'm going to put a maybe, but most likely not. Vengeful Possession, 2 colorless and a red. For a sorcery, it can control a target creature on a turn. Untap it, it gains haste on the turn. You can discard a card if you do draw a card. Okay, it's just the latest version of Steal Your Creature, get something. So, it's fine. Nothing too surprising about it. For constructed, likely just a sideboard card, except for in a few random builds. Otherwise, this is kind of just a limited card you're going to play. House Cartographer, colorless and a green for a 2/2. At the beginning of your second main phase, if it's tapped, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a land card, put the land into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You know, I'm not a fan of a lot of the survivors right now, except for maybe one of them. And I'm not, like, even, I guess here's my problem. Even if you're playing stuff that makes their survival mechanic work, which right now would be stuff like vehicles or mounts, right? That you can tap to pay their cost, and then at the end of the combat, you're able to get the ability. My issue here is the upside on these abilities just aren't great. Like, even this one, it's like, okay, cool. I get to reveal cards, so I get to a land, and the land doesn't even come into play. Like, I have to play this, I have to play some way to make sure this is tapped and not die. And then I don't get to even get the land. It just goes into my hand. So you're not even really ramping, you're just making sure you hit your next land drop. And if that's what I wanted to do, then there's a bunch of other cards that let me do that without having to meet all these other requirements first. And I can just play better 2/2s. You know what I mean? So I think that's the issue here. Now, the one we talked about, I believe it was in the previous day's previews, where it gives a creature, like you can move counters when a creature dies or whatever. That's a thing you can build around, and it has a bonus upside. Like, so far, all the other ones we've seen are like, put a counter, gain flying, whatever. And that's kind of it. They don't really have the big payoff upside. So right now, I'm not that excited about their survival mechanic. Now, that being said, I'll still try to build something with it during the streamer event and see what we can do. But I'm just not feeling it at the moment because of abilities like this where they just don't do anything. I mean, they do something, but nothing significant when you consider the power level of all the other things that we're playing with. Rite of the Moth. Colorless, white, black for a sorcery. That's 4 mana, folks. Return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. And it has flashback for 3 colorless, white, black. So for 6 mana. Ooh, you know what? As a reanimator spell, this ain't bad. I mean, you only get a chance to get the creature back one time because that has finality counter on it, so then you won't be able to do it again. So that's a little bit of a downside. But the fact that you can use it twice is pretty nice. This is kind of the tough part, right? Because we even saw another creature that does this for, I believe, 5 mana or something. But it's tough because we have so many ways to reanimate creatures right now that I don't know if this works to the same level. But it is only 4 mana. It does have multiple colors. So that does give it a leg up over some of them. And the flashback is actually really good. So if you do happen to be playing white in your reanimator deck, then it's probably worth it to try this card out. Baseball bats. It's a green and a white. Oh, I think this is the baseball bat that Tyvar swings. Artifact equipment. When baseball bat enters, attach it to a creature you control. So 2 mana, put it on a creature. Creature gets +1/+1. When it attacks, you tap up to one target creature, and you can pay 3 to equip it. So 2 mana to give something a +1/+1, but then you basically tap down a blocker every time. I mean, it's not bad as far as equipment go. It does require 2 colors, which is a bit of a downside. I don't think this will get a lot of play. I'm not even sure how much it gets in limited, but being able to tap down a blocker every turn in limited is pretty strong, and it is a +1/+1 you can move around. So it's probably not the first card that goes in your deck, but it could be, the 26th spell maybe that makes it, or 24th spell that makes it into the deck possibly. So tough one. It's not a bad equipment, but I think for constructed play, we still have a lot of other quality equipment that we're looking at way before baseball bat. Though, random note, we are doing anachronistic things, which is kind of okay, because, it's just the world we're playing in for Duskmourn. But do the characters of Duskmourn know what baseball is? You know what I mean? Like, I just thought about that. Like, is that even... Because that's a sport we invented, I think, as Americans. So it's a thing on our existence, but is it a thing that in the Magic universe some plane would even know about? And if so, that now means that we know baseball as a sport at least exists in Duskmourn, or at least in the house, or the people who got into the house know what baseball is. I don't know. It's a weird rabbit hole, but just a weird thought. Wildfire Wickerfolk. A red and a green for a 3/2 Scarecrow. All right, so the second Scarecrow we've seen previewed. It has haste, and it gets +1/+1 and trample as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. Let's see. So you get a 4/3 haste for 2 if you have... with trample, actually. If you're playing Delirium in these colors, and the Scarecrows count as 2 types, because they are both an artifact and a creature, it's pretty easy to get to 4. This is going to carry a real strong maybe for me. Because, what I'm thinking about here is, like, let's say you have an early turn 1, I don't know, Fable Passage, so that's 1, right? You play something that lets you shoot a creature for damage and discard a card to draw a card, right? That spell. So now you have 2 things in the graveyard, or you've discarded another thing. So now you've got at least 3, plus your instant, so that's 4. And then you play this on turn 3, is like the best you can do to have it come out with haste. But that's still pretty big for 2 mana. You might be able to do 2 things on turn 3 and still have big value. So, I don't know, maybe this is possible. I'd also be curious to see what other Scarecrows we're going to see, and if there's any way to unify them as a creature type in the set for constructed play. Oh, weird. Random Tamiyo sighting. The Tale of Tamiyo. 2 colorless and a blue. It's a saga. The first 3 chapters are milled 2 cards. If the 2 cards that share a card type were milled this way, draw a card and repeat the process. And then the 4th chapter is exile any number of target instant, sorcery, and or Tamiyo Planeswalker cards from your graveyard. Copy them. You may cast any number of the copies. Okay, so a couple of things going on here. It's a self-mill tool, so it could help with Delirium or any of the other graveyard stuff you're trying to do. It does it minimum for 3 mana. Over the course of 3 turns, you will mill 6 cards, right? Or really, the current turn and 2 turns, right? So you're gonna mill 6 cards, possibly more, which is interesting, right? If you're trying to fill the yard up. The last ability, though, admittedly, this is still 3 turns after you initially cast it. You need to have a reasonable amount of mana open, or at least some proactive spells to play. So I don't know what this fits into just yet, right? Because you still have to pay the mana. So you're going to be dedicating your turn to whatever those instant sorceries or Tamiyos are to be able to play them right then. I don't know how that plays out. I'd have to really see what decks these go into. Likely into decks that don't even care about Tamiyo, to be honest. You probably aren't even casting a Tamiyo and then just leaving your board open, with this option. But, again, if you're trying to build Delirium or you're trying to build the graveyard, the first 3 are really good. So if you just randomly flip like a creature kill spell and go for the throat or something, then cool, you just cast that, move on with the rest of your turn. You've already got the value you wanted out of the card. There may be something more nefarious to do with it, but those are like my first reaction seeing the card for the first time. It's neat. It's definitely neat. I just don't know if that fourth chapter is as good as the first three chapters. All right, this is the alternate art for a card. It's the Nashi Shadow Seeker. Each time it has Menace, and it's a blue and a black, 2/2. It's a rat ninja. It has Menace. Each time Nashi deals damage to a player, mill as many cards. You can put any number of legendary cards and or enchantment cards from among them into your hand. If you don't, put a +1/+1 counter on Nashi. If you are still trying to do blue-black rats, this is okay. I mean, playing a couple of these. It's a self-mill thing, which helps some of the rats we just got in the last set. Additionally, if you don't put anything in your hand, you at least grow this so it's harder to kill subsequently on like coming turns or whatever. So that's cool. And it's also a may, so you can put any number of legendary cards and or enchantment cards into your hand. And if you don't, get a +1/+1 counter. So if there's something you don't really need or want, you can just leave it there, put a counter on Nashi, keep growing it on this menace creature. So that's pretty cool. Will it get played a lot? I don't know. Like blue-black rats aren't played much right now. That could change with this set. There's a few options you can add in there. If so, this is a pretty strong possibility, but I just don't know how powerful that's going to be in the future. Under the Skin, which is a very creepy piece of artwork. 2 colorless and a green. It's a sorcery. Manifest Dread. So you look at the top two, put one of them down as a 2/2 creature, the other in the graveyard, and then you can turn a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah, this is fine. I mean, again, I think for several of these cards, if you are doing the Manifest Dread thing or doing the face down thing, this is just a useful card, right? It fits the thing you're trying to do, and you get to replace it and put another card into your hand. So kind of all upside here, not terrible. I don't think you're just going to go squeezing this into a bunch of random decks, but if it does fit the theme of what you're doing, yeah, go ahead and play it. Oblivious Bookworm, a green and a blue for a 2/3 human wizard. At the beginning of your end step, you may draw a card. If you do, you discard a card, unless a permanent entered the battlefield face down under your control this turn, or you turn to permanent face up this turn. This card feels very good. Mostly because it's 2 mana, and no matter what, you're going to get a new card. Right now, you may have to discard something, but if you've Manifest Dreaded or any of the other stuff, right, you can put stuff face down for a variety of different things, or turn something face up. So if you're just doing what your deck's already trying to do, you're just getting bonus cards and not even have to discard. So yeah, I'm down with this. Like, honestly, if I'm playing that type of deck, I don't know if this is a 4 of, but it feels like it's at least a 3 of. Just from, getting constant cards and keeping your hand loaded. Feels pretty good. I will say this too. The other thing too about that type of deck, some of the best ways to get rid of your stuff are probably going to be sweepers, because some of the things you're putting face down, depending on how you're choosing to do it, will come with a ward cost, right? We've been playing against those currently. So it may be better for them to cast sweepers. This makes sure you can keep replacing your hand and keep, find the next thing that you can put down and find the next thing you can put down. And as we've seen, a lot of the Manifest Dread cards do a thing and make the 2/2 in addition to just giving you a body. So yeah, this could be a pretty sweet card. Boiler Bilge's Ripper. 4 colorless and a red for a 4/4 human assassin. When it enters, you may sacrifice another creature or enchantment. When you do, it deals 2 damage to any target. Yeah, this is strictly limited play. We're not playing this in constructed. I don't think we need to say much about this. Erratic Apparition, 2 colorless and a blue for a spirit. It's a 1/3, flying and vigilance. Whenever an enchantment you control enters or you fully unlock a room, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn. This is one I don't want to say completely we'll never play with, because it is a spirit. It does have vigilance and flying. It's not that expensive to cast. It gets a bonus when you're doing the enchantment thing. I'm still going to say for constructed, we're probably not playing this. I think there's better options. But it could be a budget consideration in the early part of the season. Horrid Vigor, a colorless and a green. Instant. Target creature gains Death Touch and indestructible until end of turn. These cards always look kind of simple, but truthfully, they occasionally do make their appearance into stuff. Like, even now, we're playing with various versions of, like, Tyvar Stand. snakeskin veil, all that type of stuff. So this could find a home somewhere, even if not now, post rotation or something. So I don't want to turn my nose up at this card. Like, this is fairly reasonable and could get played in some stuff. Appendage Amalgam. It's a 2 colorless and a black for a 3/2 enchantment horror. It has flash. Whenever it attacks, you surveil 1. I don't know what to think about this one. I mean, this is floating around in that space of maybe you want it for the enchantment deck, maybe you want it for the delirium deck. It does have flash, which is super nice. So you can kind of get around counters or play it during their end step, maybe get some weird blocking situations for your next turn. I don't know if we're going to play it. I'm going to assume not, but I wouldn't be shocked, I guess, if it showed up in the thing. Right now, we don't know what the decks are going to look like that this would even be considered for. So I'm just going to put a big maybe on this one. Right, next up we have Glimmerlight. It's a 2 colorless artifact equipment. When it enters, create a 1/1 white Glimmer enchantment creature token. Gets a +1/+1. It equips for 1. Alright, so the thing about this is we almost have to look past the fact that it's an equipment, right? Because it comes into play, it makes 2 permanents. We already know there's several things that like you to have extra permanents so you can sacrifice stuff. But particularly, the permanent it makes is a 1/1 Glimmer enchantment. We've seen things that care about glimmers. We've seen things that care about enchantments. It's also a token creature which will trigger some things. So this could be a player in a few different decks and not even be because it's an equipment. The equipment might just be a bonus. Getting the 1/1 that can trigger multiple other things in your deck could be the reason this gets some play. Glimmer Burst, 3 colors and a blue, instant, draw 2 cards. Create a 1/1 Glimmer enchantment creature token. Here's another one that makes a Glimmer. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, pay 4, draw 2, get a creature. I mean, make an instant speed blocker when you're just in the crunch time of the game. Yeah, this will probably get played, honestly. Like, it's just a common, so you're kind of going like, maybe this isn't a thing. But yeah, these types of cards have found their way into decks many times, and they didn't even make a creature. So it's very possible that this will get played somewhere. Daggermaw Megalodon. It's a 4 colorless, blue, 5/7 shark with vigilance and island cycling. Okay, this one, if it gets played, it's just going to be for the island cycling, and then you get the upside of potentially having a shark sometimes. The island cycling is good for 2 reasons. One, obviously make sure you hit your land drops so it can go find you an island. But the other is, it's a way to put something into your graveyard or discard something if you need to. Also, randomly, if we go back to, I don't know why I'm forgetting the name, the enchantment or the mechanic that needs you to send a permanent to your graveyard, this would also do that as well. So it could work for a few different decks, trying to trigger some different things, and then just later in the game, great, you have a shark. Creeping Peeper. Colorless and a blue for a 2/1 eye. Tap, add a blue, spend it only to cast enchantment spells, unlock a door, or turn a permanent face up. Alright, I mean, again, if you're doing a face up deck, you want some extra mana. A 2/1 for 2 that gives you some mana to do your thing is cool. Same thing for the enchantment decks. Like, this will find a home in a few spots. Alright, so after today, here's a couple of questions I have for y'all in the chat. Like, do you think this whole face down creature manifest dread thing is even real? Because we're starting to see a lot of cards that reference it, and even today we got some stuff that get you extra cards and whatever, and it feels like that deck's starting to come together. And then also, how do you feel about just the Glimmer thing? Like, we've seen it referenced a little bit, but all the Glimmers also happen to be enchantments, so it feels like they'll be better for just general enchantment decks more than being Glimmers. But I don't know. It feels like we've seen a lot, and there's still some stuff, some key pieces we haven't seen yet. I feel like they're holding out purposely for the later part of the previous season, which is actually kind of smart. But yeah, I don't know where either of those two things go right now. But y'all let me know how you feel about it. And as always, if you missed yesterday's previews, I'm going to link them so y'all can check that out. But that's all of you for now. We'll see you next time.